Well, I can tell you my focus is as the Secretary of Education. So I am focusing on colleges, universities, K through 12 schools, and that's where we're really putting our focus. The president has been very clear that he wants to make sure that the recent scores that we have seen with our students, when high school students graduating, only 30% of them can read with proficiency. That means 70% can't. When we look at eighth graders who are not proficient in math or reading, we have to do something about this in our country. And we are spending more per pupil than any other country, and we have the lowest results for that. We're doing something wrong. And clearly we want to take the bureaucracy out of the Department of Education and make sure that our states are prepared to have the tools that they need and best practices to really teach their students. Let's let teachers teach. You know, I think teaching is one of the most noble professions that there is, and I think our teachers need to be paid and supported, protected, and allowed to teach in schools and not be bogged down by red tape. And let them teach, because when they do, they understand their classrooms. The best teaching is that closest to the students, and I think we're going to see improvements in our scores when we get the bureaucracy of the Department of Education out of the way.
Secretary McMahon, what you just described for K through 12 education is pretty different than what you're doing with the college level funding at this point. It's on the colleges. I completely understand why you would want to press a federal imperative and make sure things are not getting out of control, that federal money is not being spent that way. But if you turn all the money back over to the states, does that mean the federal government will have no say in what happens in K through 12, that it's completely up to the states?
Well, here's the thing. Congress actually appropriates the money that goes to states. You know, for Title I, for our IDEA programs, which are for handicapped and disabled students, you know, and a great deal of that funding is appropriated. Right now, the Department of Education, in some ways, is a pass-through for that money. A lot of the grants that are being approved by the Department of Education and sent to states have a lot of strings, a lot of bureaucracy attached to it. So we've talked to a lot of governors. If you look at Kim Reynolds in Iowa, if you look at Governor DeSantis in Florida, programs in Texas and Louisiana, we have really seen scores come up on the recent NAEP scores, which are national tests, because those governors have put in place things like school choice, allowing teachers to teach. And they have used their grant money in very good ways. But if we can get that money, and governors have talked to us about it, right. If more of the money comes in with less bureaucracy and strings attached, they know how to spend the money. They know how to fund the programs in their states, so that federal money would continue to flow in. We're not talking about decreasing the funding that has been appropriated, you know, by Congress.
Right. Secretary, what is the timeline to dismantle the Department of Education in your mind?
Well, certainly the president has given a directive that he would like to see it sooner rather than later. But there are things that are constrained by Congress, and clearly this would take 60 votes, you know, in the Senate to do this. That's not an easy task. But, you know, to dismantle a department and to make sure, as I mentioned before, that states have the right tools and are aware of best practices, and how do we provide them with the kind of research that they need. And I think some of that research is very well being used to inform them. So it takes a while to unwind it. It's not going to be next week, but certainly we are proceeding as expeditiously as possible.
And Secretary, would your perspective be that then the money would get sent from Treasury to the states? Would there be any oversight on a federal level to the states, or is the idea that that's not necessary? I ask because I think one of the reasons the Department of Education was created was because there was a view that it wasn't clear that every state necessarily had all of the wherewithal necessarily to distribute the money and to distribute it in an equitable way and things of that sort.
Well, if you think about the fact the Department of Education was actually voted on in 1979 and then came into activity in 1980, and since that time, we've spent $1 trillion on education in our states, and our results, have not showed that. Our scores have been continuing to go down, so we're clearly not doing something right. But we want to make sure that states do continue to get the funding. Look, some governors are going to do better than other governors. Some states now are ahead of other states because of the programs they're putting in place. But we just think there's too much bureaucracy right now between the federal appropriations and funding and what the states can do in their local levels.